And I see we've still got people coming in, so we'll give it just a moment. Once Tony and John begin with their presentation, you can feel free to pop your questions into the chat or use the Q&A function if you'd like. And Tony and John will be glad to answer those questions at the end of their presentation. Got a few more people coming in. As a reminder, this session is being recorded. So those recordings will be made available to participants after the conference concludes. All right, I think our attendee list has stabilized. We may get a couple of extra folks coming in throughout, but we've been pretty consistent for the last few minutes. So I'm going to pass it over to Tony and John. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and welcome to everyone to this afternoon's session entitled Closing the Library Skills Gap. My name is Tony Zanders. I'm the founder and CEO of Skilltype, and I'm joined by John Barnett, Dean of the Library at University of South Carolina Upstate. Before we begin, just a quick agenda. We'll walk through sort of two presentations, one from myself, one from John, that describes sort of the impetus for why Skilltype was created and the problems we're aiming to solve through a software-based approach. We'll then hear from John giving sort of a case study on their decision as a library to move in this direction and to begin implementing Skilltype to solve some of their issues. And then we hope to have a robust discussion afterwards with not just questions, but we want to hear from each of you on how your libraries are navigating the current skills changes you're facing, or personally, as you think about the future for your career and having to navigate new demands for your job as well. So we'll save time at the end for a robust conversation. Okay. So I want to frame this conversation by zooming out a bit to help understand the sort of changes we're seeing today to our work have been one in a long trend of changes dating back, I would say, to the late 90s. But for the sake of today's conversation, if you go to the bottom of the slide, looking at 2004, when libraries had to first adopt their first website, and the implications of no longer serving patrons who walked into your buildings, but also people you can't see that were visiting your library, quote unquote, and having to provide services to them. This change forced us to rethink our work. It forced us to question what types of skills should we develop to start to attract digital users. Fast forward, we saw this shift happen again, where we interrogated the work we do, the nature of our jobs, what is a librarian, what is a library worker, when our collections started to become outsourced. It used to be the case, as we all know, that the library owned its material and lended it to patrons. But what happened when the collection began to sort of be owned by third parties, and we're sort of subscribing to services as opposed to adding to our own collection? What does this mean for the role of collection development? What does this mean for cataloging if a lot of the cataloging work is being done by third parties? What work is there left for me to do in that case? And these types of questions arose again around that 2010 era. You fast forward to 2016, where society was overtaken by racial justice movements, and we started to again interrogate what is the role of the library? How does our workforce is supposed to respond to needs of our communities that we serve, but also needs of our staff? And we started to rethink the role of the library, not just as a provider of information and access, but also one that could create a sense of belonging for both staff and colleagues, but also our communities. Again, adding new responsibilities and new roles to the library that perhaps weren't conceived a decade or two prior. And then COVID-19. We were all thrusted into a remote work environment, oftentimes for most people, the first time. Yet the library had to remain open. We still had to serve our patrons, even though our buildings were closed, right? This again caused us to ask that question, right? What is the library at this point? Is it only a website today? How does my work change? How do I view myself as a library worker or as a manager? How do I manage people that I can't physically walk to their office or see their work? And the latest sort of evolution is starting to wrestle with artificial intelligence and asking ourselves the same set of questions, but because of a new phenomenon of having software that assists us throughout our work. And it, again, forces us to wrestle with this question of what is my role in light of this new technology? And so I wanted to sort of stage this for two reasons. One, to discuss the role of Skilltype, but two, more broadly, we shouldn't have such sort of we should resist the temptation to have sort of an overreaction to sort of the latest thing happening to our libraries. Libraries are extremely resilient and been able to sort of reimagine our work, I would say arguably better than most other institutions across society, across our cities and municipalities and universities. And so this framework is helpful for us as we think to the future, right? In 2028, 2029, it's going to be something new, right? But we should be confident that we have the skills and the sort of wherewithal to reimagine ourselves today. And so one sort of framing for this is, in 2018, we decided that the library should have a set of tools that allows itself to ask these questions, but to ask it in a more rigorous way and to have data incorporated into the conversation, right? When we think about our collections, we know everything about our collection. We are so analytical and data-driven. We know the cost per use. We know the circulation rates. We know them historically. We know how often things are downloaded, and we take such a data-driven approach to understanding the collection. But when it comes time to understand our organization or even our careers, we don't afford ourselves those same tools, those same types of frameworks. And we're oftentimes incorporating guesswork, even though we always claim that our people are our most important asset and our careers are the most important. So that's why Skilltype was created, was to sort of help all of us individually and as an organization think more rigorously about the work we do to prepare for the future. And we have a simple three-step model where first, we onboard libraries and perform a needs assessment within the software. This can take anywhere between 3 days to a week. And it's a way to capture those priorities and needs of any given library. And we use a standards-based approach to this process. Skilltype has incorporated over 15 core competency frameworks from ALA and SLA and NASIG and others around the world. And you can describe in a standards-based way what are the skills and products and priorities of your organization. Step 2 deals with us as individuals. Based on our job, along with what we're interested in learning, each of us in Skilltype can describe what skills we bring to the table, along with what skills do we want to learn and gain. So thinking sort of aspirationally and where we want our future to go. And thirdly, we do an overlap analysis of these two data sets. So we compare the needs of any organization against the inventory of skills and interests of its staff, and we can quickly identify where the skill gaps are today within that library. We can also quickly identify where your personal skill gaps are by comparing you against your peers in your job role globally. And this gives us a vantage point or context for if we're going to do training and development, let's let that training and development be situated in the context of what my library needs, but also what I need as a professional. If I want to grow and advance, what am I missing, right? And so only a minority of people have access to coaching and advice and mentorship to sort of help guide them through this process. And we believe that type of insight should be available to everyone, regardless of your status in the library or your race or other demographic backgrounds. That leads us to the Skilltype experience, which once you go through your onboarding process, you can now view the world of training opportunities and career advancement opportunities in your personal context. We create personalized training plans for all of our users. Each week you receive 5 targeted recommendations for yourself based again on your job and your library. And this comes from over 200 training providers around the world. Skilltype has aggregated the largest training index for the library profession with over 11,000 of these types of items. And these 11,000 trainings span 500 to 600 different topics. And so as you can see from the screen here, pretty much everything is covered, from soft skills like diversity, equity, and inclusion, or interpersonal communication, cultural fluency, to hard skills like metadata management or Dublin Core, or even things like open educational resources. We even have trainings from all of the product providers that you're utilizing in your library, whether that be Ex Libris or EBSCO or open source tools. There's even now proprietary training databases in Skilltype, like the Library Juice Academy, or training from OCLC Web Junction or LinkedIn Learning. We describe all these materials with our metadata, and we present to each of you the needles in the haystack. So instead of having to remember your logins for all these websites and having to browse everything during the limited time window you have, you can use that limited time to just start consuming relevant material straight away. All right. So that's Skilltype in a nutshell. We've been doing this work for 6 years now, and there are now over 300 libraries across 8 countries that are adopting this new model. Excited to introduce you to one of them today, John Barnett from University of South Carolina Upstate, who's going to share a bit about their story and how they joined the Skilltype community.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Yes, I'm at USC Upstate. If you don't know where that is, just get on I-85 from Atlanta and head toward Charlotte. And we're in Spartanburg, South Carolina. We're not a huge university, maybe 5,000 students currently. And the library, we have around 25 employees, give or take, plus some student workers. It's been an interesting, I've been here 3 years, and it's been an interesting 3 years. I feel like it's never dull, that's for sure. And it changes quite a bit. And I learn more as I do this job, and hopefully learn more from my colleagues and employees as well. We have one location, but we're getting an additional building, and we have some operations out of neighboring Greenville as well. We're part of the Pascal Consortium, which is the partnership among South Carolina academic libraries. And that's about 54 strong in South Carolina. Like I said, I became dean in June of 2021, so I've been here about 3 years and a week. And we just started using Skilltype in February of 2024. Having said that, I had an interest in this from some time ago. I used to be the executive director of the Ontario Council of University Libraries. And when we were doing our Alma Primo implementation, there'd been a concept around that called collaborative futures. And we were trying to figure out how the 21 libraries in Ontario, university libraries, could work together and benefit from what staff knowledge, faculty knowledge, and sharing that knowledge across the province. It's a big province. And some of the libraries are very well resourced, and some are not. It was a little more challenging in Ontario because you have a more unionized labor force, and it can be more challenging to try to do that collaboration. People get worried about like, well, if so-and-so does this and I do this, are you trying to get rid of me? It can be a little more fraught of an environment in that case. We don't obviously have that issue in South Carolina in terms of unionization, but it still is a new concept for Pascal, I think. When this came forward to Pascal, I was like, great, this will be fantastic. And the idea behind it was like, we are we're Alma Primo customers as well. We'll be able to collaborate more widely. And not everybody has been on board with that, but I think we're sort of gaining momentum to approach it more as a collaborative consortial idea. In the meantime, though, there were very specific needs and reasons why Skilltype was important to USC Upstate Library. About the time I came in, within the first year, we had done our reaffirmation for SACS, Southern Association of Colleges and Schools accreditation. And part of 3 things that the university was asked to explain further and work on, 2 of them were related to the library, which was a little daunting. And one of those was, what is your plan for staff development as opposed to faculty development? We, I think, have a history of being reasonably well funded for faculty travel. You've got faculty who are tenure track and who are working on post-tenure review. And so a lot of the funding went there, but it didn't really go toward staff, library assistants. And I thought that's definitely a problem, and SAC saw it as a problem as well. I wanted to respond to that. I think too, library faculty have probably a little more flexibility in location work sometimes. Maybe sometimes not as much. They may think more than I think they should have, being able to work in different places. But staff didn't feel they had that, and were often their job is tied to the location, to the nature of their work. And so I also saw Skilltype as a way, and just training in general, professional development in general, as not tied to a physical location. So that if somebody needed to work from home, regardless of their status in the organization, they would have a venue to do that and some opportunities to do that. I think too, we definitely are in a period of transition. We have always been very reference and instruction heavy, and as we see those statistics go down, I think it's necessary to kind of pivot and try to build our skills in technology, technical services, scholarly communications, marketing, things like that. And I think too, particularly staff and faculty want more opportunities as well. It's also challenging for me because I'm the only administrator in the building, and I end up supervising more than half the employees. I would not recommend that. They're a great bunch, but that's just a lot to manage and feel like you're giving any sort of quality guidance to anyone. So it means a lack of bandwidth for me to be able to do as much as I would like. This has helped a lot. Skilltype is starting to help us a lot with A, informing people about what training is out there, and B, getting them to ask more for, like, well, I saw this in Skilltype and I'd like to do this. It costs. Can I pay for this? Or can we pay for this? Yes. So that's made better use of our money, so that it doesn't all just go to individual travel to conferences and things of that sort. All right, so I think some of the areas that staff and faculty have identified are well covered by Skilltype. So we talked about EDI, we talked about accessibility training. One of the things that was exciting for me was when Niche Academy and Library Juice Academy suddenly became, those opportunities became available through Skilltype. That was a request I'd had early on, and it's like from our own employees, like, well, why can't we do this? Well, we can do it, but what am I going to spend the money on? And I'd rather not take too much of a scattershot approach, and I'd like to see you vet these opportunities in comparison to other opportunities and make a request for that. I thought one of the interesting things for us too was we've just started a new course on news media literacy, a for credit course. And we were using a lot of offerings from the News Literacy Project. And it was great to be able to go to Skilltype and say, we're using a lot of these offerings, and I think they might be of interest, and a lot of them are free or low cost. Can you make those findable through Skilltype? Which they did pretty immediately. And I would say that's a great thing about the team is that you can come back with suggestions. There are regular town hall meetings. There are lots of opportunities to share observations or what you think works or what might need some help, and they respond very well to that. I think too, we're trying to do better with technical services. We have a new repository through our flagship institution, University of South Carolina, Columbia. So trying to bring staff up to a level where they're comfortable in using that, and adding content was important. I think too, what I've tried to do is, again, we get at that idea of equal access without requesting. You can do at your own pace. You can do from any location. We've tried to create teams by unit, so access services, reference, research services, etc. But I've also tried to do teams by professional interests, such as AI or marketing, or our library committees, such as outreach or displays or DEI. And in those, instead of having it just, I am the person that's doing all communicating, we have lots of different managers in those groups so that really anybody can share training with each other, so that you're not just, it's less hierarchical. And I think that's a benefit too. And it to me gives people the opportunity to find knowledge and share it, and to be part of this, and not just feel like all knowledge has to come from me or a librarian. It kind of comes across the board there. I've also sort of came across this by accident, but started to use Skilltype for me as sort of a current awareness service to some degree, where I could look at, I'd gone to the Charleston conference last year, but there was no way I could attend everything. And there was no way that I was going to stay on top of everything that was there. But to be able to find that content here and important reports through them or Ithaca, and that is a way for me to keep up with that and come back to it, and not just be tied to, well, I know that email was somewhere and I have no idea where it is anymore. So that's been a really helpful way for me to kind of work on my own professional development. All right, so what's next? A few things. I think one thing I'm still working on, I think staff are pretty good about using Skilltype. I think it could be better. And I want to, as you'll see at the end of this, I'm trying to tie that to their annual evaluation, their performance review, not as a threat, but as a way to show that you have some opportunities here and you can do some self-directed learning. And, it can be, hopefully it's all related to the profession, but it can be for what your current job is or what you aspire your job to be as well. Again, I'm trying to use scholarly communications as a good example of that, where people are learning how to use our repository. I think too, what I would like to see our folks do is put their own training content in there. And I think they have some very good training content. We do a lot of videos. We do a lot of other kind of learning objects. The university is involved in OER. So I think there are several things that we could do here and contribute to that. If we're not already, we're soon should be able to have like a single sign-on through Microsoft 365, which is our platform on campus, but there are other sign-ons too through Google, etc. And that will make it a lot easier, I think, for us and people to feel like it's a little more seamless to get in and out of Skilltype as they need to. I'm hoping too we can go back to that idea of a consortial approach to Skilltype, so that Pascal or whomever, whatever organization you have, can see who's doing what, who has what knowledge, and perhaps how to share that. I think Alma Primo has been a big learning curve for us. In the middle of it, we lost our technical services librarian and our acquisition specialist. And so we had to do a lot of scrambling to find people to help us do this. And Pascal is very good about that, but it would be good if we made it a little less labor intensive for them and was able to reach out ourselves to people. And I think that would have helped us a lot this last year instead of just kind of trying to swim through and find our way. And like I said, I hope I'll be able to encourage people to make even more use of the platform as they go forward. And let's see, is that it? I think
Yep,
that's it for me. Okay.
I think that was all for your end, but we there's a couple of directions we can go now. We want to remind everyone to add questions into the Q&A. We have folks on the Galileo side who are going to be moderating that. And what I'd like to do is kind of, as people are typing in questions, I'd like to sort of share my screen live and walk through sort of a brief demonstration of the platform. What I'll also do in the meantime is sort of leave our contact information here as well for folks who have questions they'd like to take offline. And so as we're working on that, I will jump into Skilltype, and what I'll do for the sake of time is sort of do a walkthrough of sort of the workflow John just described of a consortial implementation. We have numerous consortia that use Skilltype for skill sharing purposes. And so I'll jump into that workflow right now. So let's see here. So from a library's skills analysis, we can show an organization the skills that it's missing. And in the event that it's missing skills, if you belong to a consortium, we're able to identify the other members of that network who can help you collaborate in that area. You could contact these organizations for a brief phone call, or to discuss a potential project you can work on together, or maybe some type of shared services as well. Because we think sort of the future of consortia is evolving from just resource sharing more to human resource sharing. So if you're, oh wait, it says you're not able to see. Hold on, sorry. Share. Okay, how about now? Apologies. So I'll just quickly reiterate. So each library, after its onboarding, gets a skills analysis dashboard that shows you where the gaps are among your current workforce. And in the event you're missing skills within your organization that you need, but you belong to a consortium, you're able to see the other members of that consortium who has those skills that you're missing. And you could then contact this library to discuss a potential collaboration, or maybe you just need someone to talk to before you submit a grant application, or there's a wide variety of reasons why you could want expertise that you don't have. And we believe that the future of consortia is evolving from mere resource sharing to human resource sharing. This creates a sort of two-way environment, not only for organizations to get what they need, but also for employees to receive more opportunities for career advancement. I mean, imagine being able to have residencies or sort of apprenticeships in other organizations throughout the course of your career. And so that's one sort of area I wanted to demonstrate. Happy to take the product tour wherever you'd like, if there's specific questions, or we can unshare and have kind of a broader conversation if you'd like as well.
And Tony, I'll just step in here. This is Nikita, your moderator. Just to let you know, no questions so far in the chat, but we did get one question in the question and answer feature that you were already able to type an answer to. I'll just read it out loud. I'm not sure if everyone has had a moment to review that, and maybe you can expand on the answer as well.
Sure.
That question was, what is the cost for acquiring Skilltype? What is the cost based on size of university, size of student population, or other specifics?
Yep, great question. So Skilltype is priced based on the number of employees within the library. So we use FTE or full-time equivalent as a count. And it's an annual subscription based on that number. We have our smallest customer is maybe 5 employees. Our largest is about 800. And you're able to, we can get really creative around kind of how the organization is structured. We don't charge anything for student workers or for volunteers. And so we have a sort of large amount of student workers or volunteers that are added on a semesterly basis, but that doesn't impact the subscription cost. So the price is comprised of an annual subscription fee along with a one-time onboarding fee, because our team handles all of the sort of training and setup for the library.
And we did get another question there in the chat there. It says, can you talk through what a skills analysis looks like? Is it different for the type of library that you're working with, academic, public, et cetera?
The answer is yes. So we now work with every type of library, from academic to public to medical health sciences. We have state libraries. We even have some museums and galleries as well. We also have to support small, medium, large, and even extra large libraries as well. So yes, I can share my screen and kind of walk through this. So step one, and I'll use the Skilltype organization for this. That way I'm not showing any organization's data. But it works the same. So step one is for the library's leadership team to create a profile for itself, whereby it can select the strategic priorities it has for its library, along with sort of key skills that are important to it. You can select up to 100 of these skills and competencies here. And it's pretty robust in terms of the vocabulary. It's dealing with all of the skills that are used within our libraries, whether related to research or data, even things like maker spaces and various types of cataloging, even soft skills like interpersonal communication or cultural fluency and others. We even have business skills like fundraising or grant writing. So it's a way to capture, for my organization, what are our biggest needs? What are the types of skills we want to sort of grow and cultivate within our organization? Each of these are then made visible to all employees. So there's no more information asymmetry around, well, I knew about this need because I have a good manager that decided to communicate with me. And well, I didn't know about it because my manager doesn't talk to me. And so we're removing all of that and making this visible to everyone. Anyone can then click onto one of these to jump into training resources on that skill. So we're bringing together kind of the needs of the organization along with the opportunities from the broader industry. The last section of that profile, which is again the first step of the analysis, is around products and services that are unique to your library, because in the case of USC Upstate, they're an Alma Primo organization. I'm also understanding that Galileo was, but you're now transitioning to say Folio. Regardless of the product mix your organization has, you can select those for your organization. and give employees sort of shortcuts to those opportunities through the profile. Okay. We also, once this profile is complete, it can be edited at any time because your needs do change, obviously. The next step is to invite all of our employees, and each employee is then walked through a personal onboarding where they can identify what their job title is. They're also able to choose a job category. We have about 50 job categories that come from the various professional associations like ARL and ALA and PLA and others. So each employee can choose a job category that is mapped to the skills we saw on the prior screen. So even if you don't know where you should be training, simply by saying, hey, let's say I work in children and teen services, right? Well, we will deduce from that selection, here are the 60 or 70 skill areas you should be working on. And each employee then is immediately given access to Skilltype, where you can search everything, browse everything, and begin accessing material straight away, right? What's happening now as employees are off to the races in their own journey, all of that data that comes from the employees is then fed into that analysis tool. So the analysis, which I'll show in a moment, is comparing, again, what the needs are for the library against what are the skills that we have as employees, along with what we're interested in learning. So each employee has a personal profile that they can manage over time, where they're describing their skills. They're also saying, hey, I may not do this work today, but I'm interested in learning how to do these things. It does fall outside of the scope of my current job, but this is where I'm interested in taking my career, right? And so we give everyone an opportunity to share that information. So there's no excuse now that managers didn't know, I wasn't aware you wanted to learn about this, right? Everything now is documented. And we also give employees an opportunity to share their product experience, because many of our colleagues come from diverse backgrounds and professions before they work in the library. And so it's a really insightful process where people can share experience that they've had from other jobs as well. Now, I mentioned that all of this is sort of brought into an insights dashboard that we are analyzing, again, what skills do we need against what we have? And so we take the priorities of the library and we break it into 3 categories. This first category is called acquired. So we said we needed certain skills. The good news is we have people with those skills. And we can click into this to see who are those individuals with the skills we need. We can consider these folks for projects or tasks or potential job opportunities within the library. All of this is described as like internal mobility, right? The idea of being able to take someone from one part of the organization and move them to another part of the organization. The second category of the analysis is called interested. So we need certain skills at our library. The good news is we have people who want to learn those things, right? So before we launch a job search and start recruiting someone from outside, let's take a look at our current org chart, right? Let's see who sort of is wants to learn the skill, A, and B, let's see who is doing the training, who is putting in the work to gain that skill, because it's better for us for a variety of reasons to work with someone who wants to learn the skill internally than have to launch a job search and find someone externally. And then lastly, if we need certain skills according to our profile, but we don't have anyone with them, the analysis tool categorizes those as missing, right? And we can click into this and we can start to see maybe there are potential employees who discovered us on Skilltype. They don't work for us yet, but maybe they want to work for us. And so we can see potential candidates for that role. And if we belong to a consortium, we can also see, are there other member libraries that have the skills that we're missing, and we can contact them to discuss a collaboration. We can also just search this data, right? Outside of any type of analysis. And we could just see, do we have any people who know Excel? Or who can we go to that, let's see, who can we go to that speaks Spanish? Or who can help us with this makerspace grant we're writing, right? So all of this data is sort of searchable, browsable, not just for administrators, but for anyone. So it's sort of a more data-driven approach to understanding who we work with, and what opportunities we have to collaborate across locations, branches, jobs.
All right, thank you very much, Tony. So far, no other questions have come into the chat. Everyone, please do indeed drop your questions in the chat or in the question and answer feature. As we pause and give people an opportunity to do that, I actually have a question myself. Perhaps I could ask that, and it has to do with the profiles for either the types of library or the individuals that you were speaking about. And really, this question is also two-part. Perhaps John could weigh in on it as well. It seems like there's so many skills to maybe choose from. Is there an option for a standard list of skills already for a particular profile, for an individual by title or for a library by type? And the second part of that question is to John, is how did you navigate selecting the skills for your instance, and would having a standard would have helped? So I'll leave that there. Oh, and then we have another question in the chat related to that, being alternatively, can we add our own skills as well?
Yep, so I'll just answer these sort of reverse chronological before I hand over to John, and for him to talk about their experience. Yes, anyone can sort of make suggestions to our metadata team. If there is something that's missing at this stage, we've analyzed every core competency framework out there, and those only get updated every 5 to 10 years. At this stage, our users and our community around the world are sort of giving these suggestions to us. They are in their own profile maintenance. They are saying, hey, Skilltype team, you should add this skill, or you should add this product. And we review those suggestions on a weekly basis. If we convert it to a controlled term, you will receive an email telling you that is now added to the system, and it was added to your profile as well. In terms of the templates, we do now have, and John, I don't know if this was the case when you first onboarded in February, but we do now have templates whereby the library is not starting their skills analysis from scratch. And so based on there's 6 templates, basically. There is small, medium, large for public libraries, and then there's small, medium, large for academic research libraries. And when we are onboarding the library, based on our knowledge of the organization, we start them off with one of those 6 templates. And that gets the profile about 80% of the way to completion. The leadership team then only has to sort of refine those skills and products for their unique needs. But I'll hand it over to John, because that happens with another team that I don't manage, and I actually am curious to hear about their experience.
Oh my gosh, you're asking me to think back like a few months. That may be a real challenge here. We had started trialing it, I think, in the fall, and then went live, well, more or less, in like January, February. Our like onboarding specialist, Kelly, did, I think, a lot in the background to kind of get us to where we needed to go. And then I kind of went in and, managed certain things. I don't know if we had access to a particular template at that time, but
definitely not in the fall. That came out, I would say, around April.
Okay, no, definitely we did not. So I think that's great, because I think I didn't find it particularly onerous, but I think that would help a lot, and I could that makes it easier to slide into that. I do like the idea that you can like suggest skills, because I think there are things that I can't remember if like I was trying to get people to put in their language skills, and I'm not sure there was a category for all of them, but you know, there's Spanish and French at least, and you could do things like that. And I think that could be particularly useful in a lot of settings where you may have a multilingual audience, and it's great to be able to do that. I also like the missing skills things, because it helps you think about, well, I hadn't really thought of that. Like I hadn't really defined librarian futures and what that means exactly. And as a dean, I should be concerned about that and thinking about that. So, but I didn't find any of it on challenging. And like I said, I think our onboarding specialist had taken care of a lot, but we were, you know, easily able to go in and change things around and say yes, no, et cetera, et cetera. So I think they even pre-populated some teams for us, and I went and modified those as I needed to based on, you know, name or personnel. I tried to include all our part-time staff. We have not rolled it out to student workers, and I think that would be a good next step for us to do as well. So hopefully that answers that question somewhat. So.
Indeed, actually it did. And since it was my own question, I can speak fully
Okay,
to
great.
that. Thank you so much. And so far, again, we still do not have any other questions dropping in the chat. So we'll just give that a moment, and we just have a few minutes left in the session. I will submit a follow-up to the question about the list of skills. It's just that it's so comprehensive that I wonder, also having a profile template for, you know, by a certain list of job titles as well for the individuals might be helpful, especially for library administrators like yourself, John, as you're trying to administer over, like you said, have more than half of the staff there. Being able to pick out what skills you would like to see in certain job titles. And then the employees, then when they're going to pick their own profiles, would be able to notify, oh gosh, they would like to see this, but I kind of don't have it. Maybe I should check it out. So those kinds of templates. But when it comes to a list of skills, as Tony mentioned, there's so many. And so I just, as an individual, thinking about myself, how I would be able to pick it, go through it. So that's more
so
a comment than a question. But
absolutely. No, I mean, you know, I like the way your brain is thinking, because that's exactly the feedback we've gotten from our community. And, you know, we do that work for all of our users. And so all you have to do is select a job category, and we map skills and competencies to each one and pre-populate your profile so that you too are not starting from scratch. And this is helpful for people that are new to the library workforce. This is helpful for people who've been there a while and are looking to sort of think about what's next. Because I'm only familiar with the context of my library, my organization. Because this is a global platform. There's libraries from across 8 countries here. There's content from, I would say, over 30 countries. And so it's a great way to get perspectives from Australia and from, you know, the UK and across Europe, and it's all in English, the material, but the cultural perspectives on reference or technical services or open access are different. So it's a great way to broaden horizons, bring some oxygen into the library, especially for folks who only get like one staff development day a year. You're sort of 1000x multiplying their exposure to the broader profession they're connected to. Yeah, I guess the only other thing I'd mention is we do value everyone's feedback. I think John alluded to our monthly town halls, which take place the last Friday of every month. And this is a great way for people to share feedback with us, opportunities for changing the platform. We also get to hear and share what's on that roadmap, what's coming next. We regularly get 20 to 30 libraries represented for each one. We record these and post them to Skilltype and also email them to everyone. So it's a great way, again, to share your thoughts, share your feedback. because at this point, you all are driving the development of Skilltype. We just try to listen as best we can and prioritize things accordingly.
I was going to add something on a sort of a slightly different vein that I alluded to earlier. It was kind of interesting for us. One of our challenges, I think, early on when this came up is, was I going to have to pay for this from my materials budget? And I got people who were very edgy about that, but no, we didn't have to. We can use a different, we don't really have a true training budget or professional development budget. We have a travel budget, and we were able to flex that and use that, or I think a membership budget as well. And that was helpful. And it was also good the next time SACS comes around, like we were trying to answer the question about our plan for staff development. And I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll do an institutional membership to South Carolina Library Association. Maybe I'll commit, a third of all or half of all dollars to staff training. And I'm like, I never know from year to year how much that money is going to be sometimes. So I think this is a good thing for me to be able to go back and certainly show our administration and say, look, I think I've solved this problem for us, at least at this level. You still have to get people to use it and learn and all that, but at least it's available, and I can show that it's available too, and it's easy to access. And I think we've gotten some good uptake on it, some more than others, but I think we'll continue to see that expand.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Tony, as well. And again, I think I'll defer to our host, but I believe that we are getting close to the end of the session, but I don't see any additional questions in the chat or in the Q&A feature. I will.
Yes, so we are getting close to the top of the hour, so I can go ahead and just thank you, Nikita, for your moderation. Thank you to Tony and John for sharing your expertise, and thanks to a fabulous group of attendees and a robust conversation. This was a really great session. Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks,
you all
everyone.
very much.
Yeah.
All right,
Have
I'm
a
going to
great
go
week.
ahead and
Take care. Bye.
great. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.